And I'd see a church boarded up that was open before, and I'd go back a month or two later and there would be a mosque or some sort of a Hindu temple in its place. And I started saying, God, what is going on with your churches? And he kept saying leadership. So about 10 or 11 months into this, I said, you keep saying leadership. What are you talking about? What do you mean? And he said, go home, open the book of Judges tonight, and I will begin to show you. And what you're going to see in the first part of this presentation is what the Lord showed me from the book of Judges. As soon as your handouts arrive. But I'll give you some more. I'll give you some more overview. We're going to identify the three dimensions of leaders from the book of Judges. And whenever you see in the book of Judges, whenever you're reading that, you'll see that there's peace in the land after certain judges are successful. Well, wherever you see peace in the land in the book of Judges, it's because the judges are doing the things that I've identified in this program. Then we're going to talk about triple C synergy. Synergy is when the outcome is greater than the sum of the individual parts. In my book, I tell a story about mowing lawns. If you and I decide to mow our lawns, and we live in the same type house, we have the same backyard space. And if we both mow, and then we both rake, and then if we both bag, it'll take us, let's say, 6 hours to do our lawns. But if we took down the fence, and we both started mowing together, and as our mowers got too close and started, bumping into each other, or we have to do too much maneuvering to stay away from each other, which isn't efficient, and one of you puts down the mower and starts raking, the other one finishes mowing, the other one starts raking, and pretty soon both are raking, and pretty soon both are bagging. You'll finish those lawns together, probably not in 3 hours, probably in 2 or 2.5 hours. That's synergy from diversity. Or how when two people or two or more people are focused on a common goal and they work in coordination with each other, they achieve that goal much more efficiently. And that's the challenge for our constitutional movement. We're going to talk about delegation dynamics, training, timing, and trusting. We don't delegate to people because we don't trust them. We don't trust them because we haven't trained them. And we haven't trained them because we haven't identified what do we want them to know before we'll trust them. And the reason we don't do those things is because we haven't yet read the three-dimensional leader. And then we're going to talk about supervising for succession. And what succession means, it's that everyone within your organization may have the potential to lead your organization someday. Stick your fist into a fish tank of water. When you pull it out, is there a hole where where your fist has been? No, the water always fills in. And that's like saying that when you leave whatever you're doing, when you leave the position that you're in, somebody else is going to backfill that position. Doesn't it make sense to work with all the people within your organization so that the people that are backfilling your position all have the same value system, they have the same correct behavior patterns, they understand the right processes, and they can fulfill the mission? If you run short, I do have extra sheets up here, so. Mine are 2 pages instead of 1. I run a business based on this three-dimensional leadership modality. I call it the MRC management system. And what we do is we help people with engineering their organizations. And we do that primarily by getting leaders to think right. If the leader does right, the organization can be right. If the leader's wrong, they're going to drag the organization into the wrong direction. We're going to talk about strategic planning a little bit today. We do mentoring and coaching. Anyway, I started out as a high school English teacher, and when I first walked into the English department on the first day, everybody said, oh, you're in big trouble because everyone's got to take a Regents exam. Any more? And if the kids don't pass, these are all 2-sheeters. And if the kids don't pass that Regents exam, the parents are all going to be upset. And so I said, well, if you guys are older, more experienced teachers, why don't you take those classes? And they said, oh, no, we've paid our dues, we have tenure. And they told me I'd be lucky if I could get 50% of my students to pass Regents exams. I knew in that moment I could not do what the other teachers were doing. If I do what they did, I was going to get what they got. So I did things a little bit differently, and I never had fewer than 92 to 94% of my students passing Regents exams. Anyway, I became a veterans advocate, and we won the largest disability settlement in VA history. We had the federal government pay a disabled female veteran from the Korean era. In 1994, she received a retroactive check that spanned 1954 to 1994. That's when I first met the Handlers and the Illuminati. Anyway, as a state program director, we turned around an underperforming organization. Anyway, I'm not going to bore you with all that. All these experiences taught me that most business and organizational challenges are all human. They're all about people. When people say we're going to fix an organization, I say, okay, we're going to fix the people. When someone says, oh, the system sucks, I'm like, no, it's not the system. We're going to find the desk where our paperwork is held up. We're going to find the person who is not performing right, and we're going to give that person some training. We're going to talk to that person twice, and then we're going to start to discipline that person. And humans behave according to their values. Some people have a value system that says I can get away with what I want to get away with at work. The goal of leadership is to inspire people to focus on the mission that matters most, rally all the resources, people, budgets, everything to that cause, and get a 10,000-foot objective view of the context or the chessboard in which your mission is unfolding, so you know how to resupply, redeploy, retrain your resources, so that no matter what's going on that chessboard, given this set of variables, you can fulfill your organization's mission. So I wrote this book to bottle the 3D MRC formula and system that led to my workplace successes. I also interviewed many, many other leaders who also, when I started talking to them, they said, oh, wow, I like these concepts. So I interviewed a military general. I interviewed a person who's running a $1.5 billion corporation. I interviewed a number of people who are in a bunch of different situations. I interviewed a housing director who 3 days into the job, he gets foreclosure notices from the bank because the previous director had been lying to the board about the status of the organization. And I tell the story of how he saved the organization and turned that situation around. Anyway, 3D MRC, the mission, resource, and context mindset, it gives you a system for making effective organizational decisions. We do church consulting too, as well as business. All right, let's turn to your sheets. Today we're going to talk about the 3 dimensions of leaders from the book of Judges. In my book, it's page 36 through 71. We're going to talk about the 3 dimensions of organizational achievement and how you achieve a value in your organization, which I call peace in the land. And then we're going to talk about how do you fulfill your call in 3D? How do you operate? How do you live your life from a 3-dimensional perspective? Leadership is the ability, or I should say, leadership ability is the intersection of knowledge, skill, and desire. People can only do what they know. When I'm talking to executives, I usually start my sessions with a session called, I don't know what I don't know. I don't know what God knows. I don't know all that God knows. So if I'm going to learn, I need to say to God, teach me what I don't know. And people who think, now in certain cultures, people are afraid to admit that they don't know anything. So therefore they posture and they pretend that they know when they don't really know. So it's very hard to change organizations in like the Mexican culture and many of the Arab cultures. So anyway, knowledge is what to do. Skills skills involve how to go about doing something. And desire is you have to want to do it. What's your motivation? Now, the more you know, the better you can do. If you can only do what you know, the more you know, the better you can do. So if you want to learn anything, and you want to learn to lead better, you have to be a better learner. You have to learn how to learn. Leadership behavior is the outcome of values. Values are your standards for your own personal code of conduct. That should lead you to engage in the right principles. Principles are, right processes. Values drive behaviors that drive the processes that drive organizational success. If you think right, you'll do right. If you think wrong, you'll do wrong. Principles are systems of standards. Values relate to what we believe. Values are what you believe. Processes are how you implement your values. And principles are the applications or the benefits and outcomes of that value system. Values should lead you to a certain type of behaviors. If we agree to mission, vision, and values in our organization, and you agree to the values, I should be able to expect certain behaviors from you. Good process leads to good outcome. All right, let's look at your pages. Like Old Testament judges, today's leaders must also, what's your first fill-in? Follow God by walking in personal holiness and discerning His will, or, so God's will is the mission that matters most. In organizations, it's the purpose for which the organization exists that matters most. And we're supposed to rally the people to maximize them as resources. Rally the resources. That means time, talent, and treasure to that cause. Last time I did this was for a church conference, so there's a lot of church stuff in this particular presentation. And then you have to empower the resources, empower people to convert within the context, to act within a particular set of circumstances, adapt and execute within changing circumstances. You know what the one constant in life is? It's change. There you go. The only thing you can be certain about life is that it definitely is going to change. You get your 3 fill-ins?
No.
Actually, there are 4 fill-ins, 5 fill-ins. So we have follow, mission, rally, resources, and convert. Convert within the context. Hey, once again, if I see you're stretching your neck around the poles and whatnot, you could move to the other side of the room. There are some empty chairs over there. Or if you're sitting behind a taller person and you want to be able to see a little bit easier, better. Everybody got those fill-ins? Three-dimensional leaders keep a long-term focus on the 3 MRCs, mission, resources, and context. That sounds very, very simple, doesn't it? But boy, when you are working with other people and organizations, the concepts are simple, but following through in your behavior is very challenging when you're dealing with large groups of people. Because when people congregate, they tend to begin to focus on each other and not the mission. Two-dimensional leaders only focus on 1 or 2 of those mission, resource, and context elements. One-dimensional leaders don't focus on any of them. One-dimensional leadership is all about me, not the mission. I go to a job interview, I say what I have to say to get hired, I walk into the office upon getting hired, I throw my hat on the rack, I put my feet on the desk, and I begin to do what I darn well please. Who cares what the organization is there for? I feel that some people do that with America. They tell people what they want to hear, so people vote for them, and then they don't follow the U.S. Constitution, which is the guiding system, the value system for the United States of America.
Amen.
One-dimensional leadership traits leave leaders lacking what it takes. Samson is an example of a one-dimensional leader. Are you familiar with the story of Samson in the Bible? He's noted for being what? Strong. Okay, he's got great personal talents, skills, and abilities. He's got good work habits. He has a commanding personality. He's the jokester. He's the life of a party. He's always telling rhymes. If there were 2 opposing high schools in a town, Samson's the kind of guy that would go to the other high school's after party, tell jokes, take all the girls, and if anybody said anything about it, he'd crack a few heads. But Samson could not get the work beyond what he personally could accomplish, or what worked only for him. Samson uses all of his great personal gifts to chase girls instead of do God's mission. Did you get your fill-ins?
No.
So we have lacking, talents, and beyond. Oh, we have lacking, Samson, talents, and beyond. You're still on 1? I know that this is all terribly exciting, but what happens is when the slide changes, just look for the underlined words and start your fill-ins. Ready? So Samson is a great warrior. He single-handedly kills 1,000 men, but he failed to rally God's team to that mission. Had he had more warriors on the battlefield, they would have killed 10,000 people. And why do I say that? Just read Judges chapter 1 and you'll see what I mean. Or read, I'm pretty sure it's Judges chapter 1. Exodus, Deuteronomy, Leviticus, Judges chapter 1. And you'll see when two of Israel's tribes form a team, they kill a lot of people. Well, it's terrible to be talking about killing, but they conquer a lot of territory. Somebody asked me at one of my presentations, Mr. Wallace, what would you do if somebody attacked you? I said, I would defend myself. They said, well, what if it was an Arab person? And they said, it's a religious war. I'm like, I don't care what they want to call it. I'm going to defend myself. I'm not going to let you define what I do. I do hope to be around to talk to you about it afterwards. That's why I'm going to defend myself. But what Samson did is he failed to rally God's team to the cause. His walk was very crooked. People want to rally to the mission. They don't want to rally to the leader's mess. Amen. If Samson were to say, hey, I'm really strong and I'm going to go over to the enemy's camp and I'm going to take some of their girls, only a few boneheads would follow him. Had he said, I understand what God wants us to do, and I'm going to lead us to do it, more and more people would have participated. Yeah. So your role as a leader is to always elevate the mission that matters most. Don't use your leadership perch to pursue personal preferences. Amen. Good. The organization did not benefit, develop, grow, or profit from his efforts. He married and gave secrets to one of the organization's enemies. 2 Corinthians 6:14 tells us to not be unequally yoked. And his downfall was from these self-inflicted wounds. You know, Samson ended his life as a terrorist pulling a building down on himself. Now, he's in God's Hall of Faith in Hebrews, and God used that. But that was not God's will for Samson. Right. God's will for Samson was him to follow the 10 Commandments and lead Israel in a much better way. But Samson had no clue. So despite his great personal exploits, he had little impact on the challenges that the organization faced. Make any sense? Yeah. As a matter of fact, when you see one-dimensional leadership in the book of Judges, the enemy is controlling the land. Or the organization is in civil war. Where you see two-dimensional leadership in the book of Judges, Israel is up and running. The organization is functioning, but it's being heavily influenced by its enemies. And wherever you see three-dimensional leadership in the book of Judges, the leader is working in such a way to coordinate with the people so they're able to overcome their challenges. And they push the bad guys away and they get peace in the land. You know what peace in the land is? It means your kids can go to school. It means that you can go shopping without worrying about some terrorist blowing up the marketplace. You always have to secure the borders first. Let's talk about Samuel. He's an example. He's the quintessential two-dimensional leader. Remember, two-dimensional leaders, they get one or two of the three MRC elements correct. Samson was godly and competent at his job, but he functioned in a silo. You know, what's a silo? It's the thing that's on the side of the barn. Are there any windows in the silo? No. What were you going to say, young man? It's a storage facility. And why do they close it off from everything else? What's in there that could be harmful? Gases. You know, I did a study once. I worked for an organization. We did a study once of how farmers die. A number of them die from asphyxiation in their silos. Yeah. You know what else was really cool, though, was reading some of the death certificates about people that were gored by 7,000-pound bulls. That was kind of cool. Well, cool for me to read it, not cool for them to experience it, I'm sure. Anyway. A silo is a part of the organization where two or more people have created a faction. We're going to do things our way. We're not talking to those other people anymore. And so you're siloed off from the rest. You're separated from the rest of the animals in the barn, and you're not playing well in the barnyard. You're not coordinating with the other people on the farm. Anyway, and why did he do this? Because he failed to see the big picture context of succession planning. He put his two corrupt sons in charge of the priestly mission when he wanted to retire. And two-dimensionals, that's one of the hallmarks of two-dimensionals. They have a tendency to empower the wrong type of people. If you read 1 Samuel 8:1-4, Samuel wants to retire, and he puts his two corrupt sons in charge as priest. And they're doing some pretty awful things to the people. But Samuel was a good team player. He got along with Saul and he got along with David, the two kings. But he failed to see the organization's big picture of how the mission could be accomplished within a context where Saul is the king and now God wants David to be king. And what Samuel should have done, he should have gone to Saul and said, Saul, I know you want to look kingly, and I know David's a little kid still, but God's plan is for us to transition. It might take us 14, 15 years, but the plan is to transition. And Saul probably wouldn't have listened anyway, but had Samuel done that, things might have turned out a bit differently. Instead, what happens is Saul runs around trying to kill David. So you have two kings, well, one king trying to kill the other to-be king, and the enemies controlling the land. While Saul is focused on what matters most to Saul, not what matters most to God. You know what? Every job I've ever been in, practically, the first thing I do is I look around to see who can replace me. It sounds kind of... I've been in meetings and leaders say to me, Mr. Wallace, if I empower all of my people, what am I going to do? Well, there's a lot of things that you can't get to because you're so busy doing what you're doing. And I tell some stories in my book about leaders who they empower their people. They have 4 or 5 minutes where they say, gee, they don't need me anymore. But then the leader realizes, wow, there's all these other things I can get to now because people are suitably empowered. So two-dimensional leaders, second bullet, they tend to deploy the same strategy no matter what. If I'm working with this organization, I do a good job and I get promoted, now I'm over 2 or 3 or 4 organizations. A two-dimensional mistake is trying to make all those organizations function the same, but they're different organizations. I can't do what I did to make this organization successful and necessarily apply it to here. I got to focus on what that organization's mission is, what resources are available to it, and what's the context in which it is operating. And I've got to do that same MRC thinking for each of the organizations I oversee. There's this term down here, means functionally fixed. Hey, what do we use a screwdriver for? Screws. All right, in college, we did these experiments. We set up a battery terminal. We had 2 wires. We had a wire that was going from the battery terminal, but it was too short to reach to a light bulb. The terminal's on a light bulb. And we gave you a piece of clay, and we gave you a screwdriver. Most people would stretch out the wire, they'd wrap the wire around the battery terminal, it wouldn't reach to the terminals to light the light bulb, so they would try to use the clay to bridge the difference, but the clay is not a conductive material, it doesn't conduct electricity. What's the solution to that puzzle? What? Use the screwdriver to do what?
To connect the wire to the terminal on the light bulb.
Right, because the metal part of the screwdriver will conduct electricity. Most people, and we would ask people, do you use a screwdriver often? Most people would say, yeah. What do you use it for? Oh, I use it to do this, I use it to do that, I use it to do this. But they didn't see the alternative purpose for it. They were functionally fixed. Two-dimensional leaders tend to be functionally fixed. They don't see alternative uses for resources. All right, now, the prophet Samuel, he failed to coordinate to get multiple groups of people. That means Saul's crew and David's crew on the same page to follow through to achieve the mission. You know what you do a lot when you're running our types of organizations? I always tell people that we've got bigger fish to fry than each other. And I spend a lot of time going from person to person to person saying, no, Bob, George didn't mean that. I know what George said. I heard him. But I talked to George. He didn't mean that. George thought that we were thinking something that we weren't thinking, so he's responding to something that we're not even that's not even reality. Let me get you together with George because we've got to stay together in our organization. Oh, you don't have to hang out with George. You don't have to love him. You don't have to love, but we all need to be in the foxhole together, pointing our weapons downrange at the same target. If you don't like George, I'm going to move you 2 or 3 persons away so you never have to talk to him. But we need you in the foxhole. Don't abandon our movement because you're angry at George. We have bigger fish to fry than each other. And you know what? I've got bigger fish to fry than my own petty feelings. You're not going to offend me and get me to stop trying to save my country.
Amen.
And I have been offended. I've had to get down on my knees and say, God, I don't like hearing that. But you know what? My mission is greater than me.
Come on.
Corruption and or incompetence causes people to crave bureaucracy. So whenever things are going wrong, people say, well, we got to have another organization. We have to have more meetings. And all that's going to do is take our time away from what we really should be doing. And that's what certain political parties are very good at doing in America. I remember after Katrina, I heard a Democratic politician, her name was Hillary Clinton, say, well, if you voted for us, we'll work with the Army Corps of Engineers to rebuild a dike, whatever the heck it is, that's so big that it'll never be flooded again. That's like, people saying we can build the Tower of Babel and God's not going to flood that.
Come on.
And right after he flooded all the mountains.
Yeah.
If you believe that mess, you're going to get the politicians you deserve. Anyway, if you read 1 Samuel, you ought to write the scripture down. If you read 1 Samuel 8, 11 through 17, you'll see all the terrible things that God says happens with too much government. And that is actually repeated, or you first find this same list in the book of Deuteronomy. God always tells us, God is telling us big government's not good. It's right in those verses. I don't have time to go into it, but it's not good. Oh, there it is. It's Deuteronomy 17, 14 through 17. And verse 20 explains the same thing. People say, well, how do you know government's not good? Well, God says big government's not good. Deuteronomy 17, 14 through 17 and verse 20. And 1 Samuel 8, 11 through 17. All right, three-dimensional leadership characteristics. Let's talk about positive leadership. They keep a long-term perspective on the mission that matters most. And they don't let petty grievances or their own personal preferences sidetrack them from that mission. Jesus set his face like flint to go to Jerusalem to be crucified. And if he didn't do that, the world would not be saved. Mission matters most. Rallies the resources and objectively deploys them. I know sometimes Paul can be a little bit of a pain, but he's really good at this, and I got to plug him in where he belongs. I can't let it be about me. I got to let it be about the mission. I can't let it be about how I feel about Paul. Now, if Paul is completely obnoxious to everybody else around him, that's going to be a problem. But if Paul and I have a personality conflict, I'm not going to let that stop Paul from doing his part for the team. All right. They negotiate the context of relevant variables. Not all variables are relevant. The goal is to first see all the variables that will impact your mission. Not all of them are going to be relevant. It is good to see them all, but you only got to focus on the ones that are going to impact how I work, how I do what I do, and what's opposing me. Deborah in the book of Judges is an example of a three-dimensional leader. She understood God's call is the mission that matters most, and what God wanted were the bad guys out of the land. She ensured that those resources, and their chief resources are people, reached their potential by empowering Barak to use his talents to lead the army his way. We can have the best gun in the world, but it's a person that's got to load it, aim it, and fire it. We can have the best computer program in the world, but a person has to deploy it. All right? So here's what happened, is that she rallies the people to the tree of Deborah, where she's judging Israel, and she says, hey, God wants us to get the bad guys out of the land. So there's a general, his name is Barak. Barak says, well, I'll do it, but you got to come with me. Now, I've been in a lot of churches where preachers have said, he shouldn't have listened to a woman. I'm like, the Bible doesn't really call her a woman at this point. It calls her a prophet.
Amen.
And he's listening to a prophet, not some woman. And if you told me that God told you that I'm supposed to go punch somebody in the nose and you won't come with me, how am I supposed to believe God told you? So what does she do? She knows there are 2 or 3 good ways to achieve the mission, so she cooperated with Barak's request. And she didn't try to micromanage him. A lesser leader would have said, okay, now that I'm on the battlefield, I want the spear chuckers over there, and I want the bows and arrows over there, and I want the supply lines to run this way, and I want the chariots here. And she's not a general, but she doesn't have to pretend to be. All you have to do as a leader to be successful is empower the right people to do their roles. That's what synergy from diversity is. If we all think alike, look alike, dress alike, and talk alike, we only need one of us because we're all redundant. But if we all have different talents and different gifts and abilities, then we begin to get synergy. The output becomes greater than the sum of the individual parts. Barack said, I'm not going to go unless you come with me. She goes, fine, we'll do it your way. So she says, hey, a woman's going to get credit for this. You know what? Barack doesn't care.
Right.
What's more important, getting credit or getting off the battlefield alive? And besides, his name's still in the Bible. We all know who he is. He was not diminished by any of this, and neither was she. So Barack didn't care about taking credit. So here's what three-dimensional leaders do. Oh, by the way, at the end of that story, there's peace in the land for 40 years. And if you read the Song of Deborah, which we're going to look at a little bit later, if you read the Song of Deborah at the end of this portion of Scripture, it shows you the 5 ways that people tend, the 4 ways that people tend to respond in organizational settings. It's all in that song. Who did what? Who wouldn't go? Who took their ships down to the water and they put them out a little bit ways so if the war went bad, they could hop on their ships and bolt. They weren't going to stay around if things weren't going well. As a matter of fact, some of the tribes didn't even help them. And that's another point we're going to talk about later. You don't need 100% of the people to join you. You know how many people really participated in the American Revolution? Of all the, the entire population of the New World at that time. How many people do you think participated in the American Revolution? What was the percentage? I've heard as low as 3%. Is that right?
That's what I was.
I've heard 3%. You don't need 100% of the people. We only need a few good men and a few good women. That's what Adam said. Whoa, man. Anyway, keep the big picture in view. Know which details matter most. Play no favorites, no special interest politics. Encourage all to develop and use their gifts and personal styles to accomplish the mission and give them credit when they do so. Pursue varying strategies as circumstances evolve or change. 3 dimensionals are fluid because at times flexibility is just way too rigid. How much time do we have for this session? 10 minutes? Okay, we'll keep going. Fill in synergy. Synergy is when the outcome is greater than the mere mathematical sum of the individual parts. Synergy is when 2 + 2 = 5 or 6. I have a scenario in one of my training programs where, well, this is a true story. My secretary was very good at math, and over the course of a quarter, she found 3 of my accounting errors. So I said to her, "This is like the 3rd one you found this quarter. What are you, some kind of math whiz?" And she says, "Well, no, I got the math award in high school, but I'm really, it's like accounting. And I noticed that you mistyped a number from one of the bank statements. We didn't have computers in those days, it was all done by hand. So you just transposed a number from one of the bank statements, which made this other calculation wrong on this pension form claim. And so I just went back and traced the number, and I found where you made the mistake. And I just want you to see that I corrected it before it goes out." I said, "Well, if you're so good at accounting, why don't you do the accounting portions of these things, and I'll do the medical write-ups, and we'll get more done." And she says, "Oh, no, because as soon as something goes wrong, you're going to throw me under the bus. I'll be doing out-of-title work according to our unions." I was a union steward in my union, and she was in a different union. Well, so a lady stops my secretary in a grocery store and says, "I really need this. My husband died, and I'm going to lose my house. I need this claim done." So I told my secretary comes in and she says she met this lady at the grocery store. I said, "Well, tell that lady to bring herself down here, sit in line with all the other people. I got other people out here that are losing their houses too if we don't get this paperwork done." So my secretary calls again, a lady calls again, and my secretary says, "You really have to do this for her." And I said, if you want me to do it for her, you do the accounting and I'll do the medical write-up." She goes, "How are you going to do that with all these people sitting in the office?" I said, "If you do the accounting, I'll take it home tonight and I'll do it tonight." She snatches the paperwork from me. She goes, "You better do it. I'm going to tell that lady that you're doing it. You better do it. You're going to get me in trouble with this lady." So that was the first claim my secretary did. couple weeks later, same situation. I said, if you really want to help Mrs. So-and-so, then you do the accounting and I'll do the other part. So she signed, and she brings them in and I sign them. So then one day, I take a magic marker on a piece of paper and I just write my name in black magic marker. And she goes, what's that for? I said, trace my name on the form. Don't waste my time bringing them back in here for me to sign. She goes, oh, no, you'll throw me under the bus as soon as something goes wrong. I said, have I thrown you under the bus any time? So anyway, to make a long story short, somebody comes in and they're really, really upset about something that we did. And so I said, oh man, let me take care of this, and I took care of it. And so my secretary is outside freaking out because she was afraid I'm going to say, oh, my stupid secretary did this and blah, blah. I never threw her under the bus, I just took full responsibility. There was an older man in our office who had been such a pain in the butt to every organization that he worked with that they assigned him to our office because you couldn't push me around. And so he says to me, I know your secretary made that error. You've got your secretary doing out-of-title work, and boy, are you going to get it. There were 9 people in the office that day working, so I went out to them with the form, and I said, hey, everybody, whose name's on this form? They said, yours, Mr. Wallace. I said, thank you. And he goes, that doesn't prove anything. I said, in the court of law, it will. You got me and 9 people saying it's my name, and I signed it? I don't have to say I signed it. All I got to do is say whose name is on it. It's my name. I'm taking full responsibility. A lady comes to me later in the day, she goes, Mr. Wallace, I always do this, this, and this for the organization, but I've been looking at this and I've been studying with Bobby. I think I could do these other processes as well. So I said, well, let's have a meeting and see. So we discussed how we could trust but verify. And now I have 2 employees doing more than they did before. A couple days later, another guy comes to me and says, Mr. Wallace, I'm ready to accept more responsibility here. Now I have 4 of us doing more than we did before. 2 years later, they do a productivity study and they want to know how my office, which is the 10th largest office in the state of New York, my office in the 10th largest city in the state of New York is outperforming all the offices in New York City and Buffalo that have twice as many people, sometimes 3 times as many people. And I said, well, they said, well, you're the only professional here. How can you get all this done? I said, just because I'm the only professional does not mean I'm the only person doing professional work. To me, the janitor's doing professional work.
You're right.
And I want to treat all my resources as if they are professionals. Anyway, so to make a long story even longer, they decide that they're going to create a job title based upon my secretary's performance. And so we write a state exam. I work nights and weekends writing this state exam. We go around the state training people while we still have all of our own work piled up in our offices. We're going to have 2 retirements. And because people at my level, when they retire, there's a greater sum of money, so we can take that savings and we can promote 5 secretaries into this new job title. So the day comes. I call our central office. I said, I didn't see the memo on those promotions. Oh, we're working on it, we're working on it, we're working on it. 2 weeks go by. What's going on? Oh, we're working on it, we're working on it, we're working on it. You know what they did? They gave those promotions to the political people's girlfriends. Yep. And here I was promising my office that once we do all this work, trust me, I've gone to the meetings, you're going to be rewarded for your success. And it was very, extremely psychologically traumatizing for me, for them to have made me a liar to my people. And in state government in New York, you hold a job title for 4 years before you can retire at the higher rate. My secretary and the other people that we had trained and had volunteered to do this extra work, it was 5 years before they got their promotion. But they eventually got it. And even that, it took a couple of weeks of psychological trauma, and I picked myself up and got back on the horse and began doing great things for our clients again. Because I wasn't going to let their evil stop me from fulfilling my mission.
Amen.
Anyway, we'll stop there, we'll take a break, and we'll come back. Taking a break?
Yep.
With a triangle, okay.
That one. I heard that.
We're going to talk about mission, vision, and values. The role of mission, vision, and values in strategic planning and implementation. You know, the challenge in organizations is to get everyone to do what the organization needs. In order for that to happen, people have to have the same value system. And I'm going to explain. I've been to a lot of these seminars, when they do mission, vision, and values, but they never tie it together. So I want to show how what's the real purpose of mission, vision, and values. It should fold into a strategic plan. So what we're going to do next is show how you synthesize your mission, vision, and values into an integrated strategy or a strategic plan that helps guide your team to fulfill organizational goals. All right, this is the Great Commission. Mission is the main thing that you're filling there. And what's important here is the bottom paragraph. Leaders who uphold up an appropriate mission give people a reason to rally around a meaningful and significant cause that is greater than themselves. Most people want to attach themselves to an effort that is greater than themselves. That's why we're thrilled with we're enthralled with the concept of being part of the kingdom of God, being part of a dynamic homeschool group, being part of a family. The family, I'm a member of a family. The family is actually bigger than me. That mission, look at that bottom paragraph. That mission is worth sacrificing to achieve. All right, vision. Vision is the future of mission fulfillment. If you are wildly successful at accomplishing your goals, what will your organization look like, and what will the world look like? Do you know for many years the top 10 earners in the United States of America, not the top 10 wealthiest people, but the top 10 income earners were Bill Gates and the next 9 people in his company. So if Microsoft was wildly successful at fulfilling its goals, then the company's growing, more people within the company are making money, more people within the company are able to buy homes for their families. Here's how I got into organizational consulting. I'm running my veterans office and a guy comes to me and he has a problem, and I solve this problem in veteran services, and he says to me, my company's going bankrupt and you're a problem solver, come help my company. I said, I know nothing about your company, I work for government, I know nothing about this stuff, I can't help your company. He calls my office a few more times, he comes to visit me another time, and he says, well, why don't you just come over and talk to us? He goes, I just got a feeling about you, why don't you just come over and talk to us? So I said, well, I'll come over and talk to you, but it's a waste of time because I know nothing about your business. I can't help you. So I go in there at about 5:45 one night, and the cars are all leaving the parking lot. I go to the corner office where the bosses are gathered, and they point out to me, you see that guy walking there in the blue work shirt and the blue pants? They said, he's our maintenance director. We just got his income up to the point where he can now afford a house for him and his wife and 4 children. And we watched all the cars leaving the parking lot, and the 2 directors, the boss and his buddy, his partner, said, we're going to stay here till 9, 10, or 11 o'clock tonight to try to make sure those people can make their mortgage payments, take their children to ballet lessons. And in that moment I said, okay, business people are the salt of the earth. They're not the greedy, horrible people that they're being made out to be. I could not help that man save his business. I didn't know enough about business. But what I did is I went and got an MBA so I could help other businesses.
That's good. Amen. That's good.
Now, an appropriate visions are doable with God's help, even if they are BHAGs. You know what a BHAG is? It's a big, hairy, audacious goal. Right? What's a BHAG? It's a big, hairy, audacious goal. Like, we're going to win the largest retroactive settlement in VA history. I'm going to get more than 50% of my students to pass Regis exams. My goal was 100, actually. I believe that my customer service program, that we can provide, we can provide outcomes that are in the 89th percentile. I got to the 84th percentile. Envision what would happen to your community of people envision what would happen to your community if people, it should be if instead of got saved and doubled the size of our churches over the next 2 to 5 years. Do you think there would be more drug abuse or less drug abuse? Do you think there would be more domestic violence or less domestic violence? Child molestation, people going to prison, people fighting with the police and hurting the cops and causing our communities more tax dollars in terms of workers' comp expenses. There would be all sorts of phenomenal good things happening. Okay, what about our liberty movement? What would happen if we could convert 50% of the people in any neighborhood to our liberty causes, to get them to understand what we've learned here?
Come on.
How would that transform the United States of America?
Come on.
That's a big, hairy, audacious goal.
Yes, yes. Yes.
Values are the assumptions and behaviors that should lead to mission fulfillment. I struggled for 4 years trying to figure out what is the talking point that will get people to listen to the biblical basis of the Bill of Rights. Here's the talking point. It took me 4 years to get here. The American government is founded on the 10 Commandments.
Yes.
The people who are ruining our nation ascribe the 10 precepts that are the opposite of the 10 Commandments. When I say that to people, I never get an argument. That's a talking point. That's an introduction to the conversation. Our challenge is that we know so much that as soon as someone seems a little interested, my tendency is to vomit on them and give them so much information. After a while, their eyes roll back in their head and they're like, okay, I was with you, Earl, but now you've crossed over into into the land of craziness. And people only have teachable moments at teachable moments.
That's good.
People aren't teachable all the time. So you have to have a 10 to 30 second commercial prepared for people. A 10 to 30 second statement that you can say to someone what is going on in the United States of America. For me, it's that statement about the 10 Commandments, our U.S. government being founded upon it, and how our government's being ruined by people who subscribe to 10 precepts. When people say, that makes sense, tell me more about that, I say, well, the 10 precepts are the foundation of the Communist Manifesto, the 10 planks of the Communist Party. That's what's hurting the world. If they ask for more, I draw the triangle. Federal Reserve Bank, we the people, anybody that uses money. When we the people authorize the Federal Reserve Bank, which is also the Bank of Benito Street, the Bank of England, the Bank of Egypt, the Bank of Iraq, the bank of whatever, the banks, they give these banks a government-sounding name, right? So whenever we the people authorize them to print our money, and you can reach in your wallet and show them it says Federal Reserve note, it means we owe the money back to them. So the arrow goes here, the arrow goes here, and the arrow goes back up to them. It never hits our treasury. We're trillions of dollars in debt. And what have they been doing with that? And they boast on their own website that they earned $88.9 billion in 2012. I haven't looked at for 2013 yet. To me, dates are kind of not quite punctual. So probably in March of 2015, I'll be working on stuff from 2013. Anyway, values are the assumptions and behaviors that should lead to mission fulfillment. Values articulate the desired attitude with which all employees are expected to perform their jobs. Values are the cornerstone of a highly collaborative, winning culture. Managers need to be held accountable to carry them out. I have this concept called franchising values. At one point I had eight regional managers, and we had managers below them. And I would tell my managers that we're McDonald's, and we have a value system. And we expect you to go and transfer that value system to the other parts of the company. That's how we get the same hamburger made throughout the world in different environments with different types of employees. Everybody's ascribing to the same value system. Anyway, culture results from how values are franchised, transferred to, and internalized by everyone throughout the organization. You know what our values should be in the liberty movement? We should be tough-minded, yet tender-hearted.
That's good.
And I'm tough-minded. Like I said, I'm not going to let you offend me and cause me to stop fulfilling my mission to save the United States of America. And I'm tender-hearted. I don't want to be a jerk. I don't want to be obnoxious. Now, I'm also not going to back off my message just because you may think it's obnoxious. But I'm going to try to deliver a tough message in the most gentle, loving way as possible. But my mission is to deliver the message. Not to soft pedal it, and not to pretend it doesn't exist. Martin Luther King, here's the mission, vision, and value model that we teach Martin Luther King because he expressed these values so well, or the concepts so well. Martin Luther King's mission was what?
Equality.
And his vision was well stated in
I have a dream.
his I Have a Dream speech. And his values were nonviolence. And he inspired people to march down the street in a nonviolent manner and get what they want. So vision becomes reality when the mission is pursued by acting upon the stated values that achieve the good processes that lead to good outcomes. Make any sense? All right, so what's the church's mission? It's to fulfill Christ's Great Commission by ministering services that equip, encourage, and enable its chief resources, which is we the people, or we God's people, to use our abilities, gifts, and talents to innovate and take advantage of opportunities within our community contexts to reach people with the gospel or with the message of the liberty movement. I believe they're kind of one and the same for me. You got your fill-ins there, resources and context? They may not, this slide may not have a fill-in. No, it doesn't, okay. I just forgot to take the two underlines out. All right, so what's another way of saying that? Okay, let's go to where your fill-ins are. 3 dimensions, there are three dimensions of communicators. Communicators come in 3 types. One dimensionals think it's all about me, so they think information is power, so they don't share information appropriately. A lot of one-dimensional people say, well, this is just what I think and feel, and you're going to have to accept it. Well, no, people don't have to accept it, and they don't. You're not a good evangelist for our cause. You have to figure out how the people need to hear it, while you're still staying true to the message. 2-dimensional leaders needlessly set up us versus them dynamics. Instead of them thinking about we, they're always thinking about us and them. It's me and my crew against you. It's like they live in junior high school. They can't like you unless, the other ones are hating. They can't like me unless me and them are hating on you. Sort of sounds like the enemy of my enemy is my friend, which is very different than love your neighbor as you love yourself.
That's good.
So 3-dimensionals focus on how everyone knows about how we, the team, will fulfill the organization's mission by using their full spectrum of gifts, talents, and abilities. Hey, has anybody here been left out of a staff meeting? Right? You guys have staff meetings and you kind of wait till everybody's here. That's 3-dimensional. You're trying to include everybody. All right, 1-dimensionals think it's all about me and my style preferences. The style preferences is you like a particular color. I was at a church, and they spent $1.2 million on a building, on a new wing of their building. And so they were doing this analysis of how their church had grown over the years. Well, after spending $1.2 million, they had the net result of 1 new person in the church. Because building a building doesn't make people want to come to it.
Right.
So one of the things that they had done was that the head elder's wife is a wonderful, she's an artist, and she loves painting florals. So there were no boys' Sunday school rooms. All the rooms were painted with florals. There was the plum blossom room, the cherry apple room, the apple blossom room, stuff like that. So the little boys didn't want to go to Sunday school. There was no King Jesus room. There was no Cool Street with kids with skateboards and whatnot motif. None of that. And so I said, well, how did this happen? And somebody said, well, the head elder's wife paints florals. What did she do? Now, I don't think she did it in a mean way, but it was all about me. I like flowers and never thought that anybody else would need something else. You know what it's like when you're a 10-year-old boy. You don't want to be in the plum blossom room or the cherry whatever room. You need to be in the transformer room. 2-dimensionals operate with a limited team or unit focus. They always impose what worked for them in the past, how our last team did it on this team. And the teams may be different. You have to approach each situation fresh and new. Look at the mission, look at the resources available. What's the context of this organization? There's an internal context and there's an external context. The internal context is that I can't sell what engineering can't make. Engineering can't make what procurement can't supply them with. So we all have to work together to create sales. Otherwise, my sales guy in the front is promising the customer something my organization can't deliver. So you always have to look at how do I function within this company? What's my internal company context? I got to do it in a way that works for all the other departments as well. Three-dimensional leaders assess how this team's entire mix of gifts can be deployed to fulfill the mission so that you achieve synergy from diversity, which results from using the full spectrum of gifts, talents, and abilities God is providing for the effort. Franchising values. Values drive how people, employees and volunteers, support the parent organization's mission. These principles work whether you're in a not-for-profit company, whether you're in a company that pays better than average salaries, and it works when you have volunteers who you are paying no salaries to. Now, have you written your own personal mission statement as to what you want your life to be about? Hey, let's do it this way. What's your mission in life? Somebody tell me what you want to be when you grow up. What, Madeline? A marine biologist. Her mission is to be a marine biologist. Other missions?
Navy?
Wants to go in the Navy?
Yep.
All right, he wants to go in the Navy. Next mission? Say it again. A private investigator. Now, if that's your mission to be those things, what are the resources available for you to achieve it? We have, first of all, hopefully good families. The last time I did this, I was in a very bad neighborhood. These kids didn't have good families. So you guys are starting off with good families. What about schooling? Will your schooling be a resource that helps you achieve that goal? It should be, right? Now, in poor neighborhoods, kids go to school, but then they got to find a place to study. They can't go home and study because there's all kinds of bad music being played in their house, and it's too loud, and there's all kinds of weird people there, and they don't want to be there. So they have to find a resource to study. They've got to find a safe place to study. So you look at all your resources, and of course these resources, you've got to find them as if you move, then you got to find a different study place resource. And as the context changes, you always have to just figure out, okay, how do I fulfill my mission given this set of circumstances? All right, suppose you want to go in the Navy, but you're colorblind. So there's certain jobs you can't do in the Navy, but there's other jobs you can do in the Navy. All right, have you written your mission statement and looked at the resources that are available for you to fulfill it? And the context you're in today to fulfill it may change. Somebody in your family may die, one of the breadwinners. How can I fulfill my mission given this set of circumstances? All right, values motivate us to do what draws people to our efforts. Values help us coordinate under the same attitude. Values compel us to do our best. What values will help you fulfill your mission? Values drive culture. I'm going to explain what culture is. Culture is a set of groups of people's set of norms and things that they believe about life. And America used to have a very cohesive culture, but now our culture is more fractured. Anyway, this is done for a church, but you know these are Bible verses. They'll know us by our love, the Beatitudes, the fruit of the Spirit. We're submitted to each other in Christ. Anyway, culture. Here's how we define culture. Culture is defined as a group's shared set of beliefs, values, and assumptions about what is important. I run 2 Bible studies. They're both sort of liberty-minded Bible studies, and our culture is that we're trying to transfer these truths to save the United States of America, and it's a learning process. And I come here, I learn so much when I'm here. It's really cool. Anyway, what's your mission? What are the values that will achieve it? And can you pursue it with the right values? We're going to go into the next presentation. The next presentation doesn't have... Oh, did you get all your fill-ins?
Yeah.
Right, the last one was synergy?
I didn't get the last 2.
You didn't get the last 3? I went too fast? If you got the last 3 and you're near them, will you give them those fill-ins? We're going to talk about some of these concepts that we just looked at. There are no fill-ins for this portion. Oh, get out of the way. We're going to do an overview again of the 3 dimensions of leadership, what it means to have peace in the land. We're going to review how you synthesize your mission, vision, and values. We're going to talk about delegation. That's where we're really going to focus. And we're going to talk about how do you get more leaders to succeed in your organization. All right, delegation dynamics. They're an outcome of training, timing, and trusting. If you want someone to do something, you have to figure out, how do I train them to do it? And then timing. Over what period of time do they demonstrate that they can do it before I fully trust them? You trust and verify. Delegation without micromanagement is that you have your eyes on what they're doing, but you have your hands off what they're doing. Kind of let them do it on their own. And then finally, you trust them to do it on their own. All right, we just did this slide, so let's go on. One-dimensional leaders fail to empower people. One-dimensional leadership's all about me, so they fail to empower properly. They delegate tasks, but not responsibilities. They delegate odd jobs, but they don't delegate entire roles and responsibilities. I did one of these once for a bunch of school teachers, and one of them said, oh, geez, I get it. The shop teacher said, I always tell the kids, would you sweep that there? Would you move that there? Would you? And he says, I'm spending all my time telling them to clean up every individual item. He says, what I should be doing is trusting the students that if I say, hey, the broom closet's over there, would you please clean up this area? And let them just do that, rather than taking up my time by saying, oh, just do this. They say, okay, I did that. Oh, then just do that. Okay, I did that. So instead of giving them the odd job, give them the entire responsibility of cleaning up the area. One-dimensional leaders tend to compartmentalize work, which frustrates people. If I'm trying to take all the credit for everything that you do and everything that you do, I kind of have you do one little piece and you do one little piece, so you're never really doing the whole. So I get all the credit because you're both reporting back to me, and it just wastes everybody's time. Try to delegate to people in ways that give them entire roles and responsibilities. If they don't want the whole role and responsibility, break down the task for them. Sometimes if you break down the task enough, they'll realize, oh, I did this task, I did this task, I did this task. I can handle the whole thing. Personally, one-dimensionals, they may personally do a good job, but they fail to empower the team to accomplish collective greatness. You know, when you talk about volunteer organizations, there's three types of volunteers. There's low-capacity volunteers. All I want to do is come to church and pour some water in the cup and for the kids at Sunday school. I could stand there, and if somebody needs something, a supply or for a craft or something, I could go to the cabinet and get it. But I don't want to organize the Sunday school material. I don't want to be responsible for much around here. So that's a low capacity volunteer, and we do need them. Then there are medium capacity volunteers. They'll handle a bit more. But my wife and I, we're high capacity volunteers. My wife and I have done things for churches on a volunteer basis that they couldn't get full-time employees to accomplish. We're high-capacity volunteers. If you tell us what you're trying to accomplish, we'll figure out how to accomplish it. We'll raise up the people to do it. The people will donate the resources to do it, and we're not afraid to take all that on. And I'm bored with anything less. High-capacity volunteers. So it's the same with all of our other organizations. Plug people into where plug people in at the level of their capacity. If I'm married and my wife just had a baby, I just suddenly became a low-capacity volunteer. If I just got a new job and it's very demanding and I got to study and work overtime a lot until I get things running smoothly, I just became a low-capacity volunteer. So always look at the context. So when people agree on values, we can expect certain behaviors from them. When they agree to your values, then you can train them, and then you can time them, and then you can trust them. Use the 80% delegation dynamic. If you're working with a very sophisticated task, people have to do it to about 80% of your proficiency before you can delegate to them. There are other tasks like sweeping a floor. You can do it at 60% proficiency. You might be a little irritated about the dust bunnies that are left behind, but it's not a critical task. So the lower the task is in terms of the critical outcomes for your organization, the earlier you can delegate to someone to do it. Make any sense? Here's what delegation is. It's the downward transfer of formal authority. Remember when we were kids, we always invent clubs, right? We had a club, right? And maybe you got to be the president of the club. And so new people would want to come into the club. And so how would you get them into the club? Well, some people didn't really want in the club, so you'd keep changing the rules, so it was impossible for them to get into the club. But other people, you'd want to get into the club, but the day before you made an impossible set of rules because you didn't want this kid in. Now you're trying to play with the rules to get the next kid in. And what delegation is, it's the downward transfer of formal authority. Nobody gets into the club unless the leaders give them the authority to do so. And what you want to do in adult life is you want to give this authority with accountability. They have to be accountable. They have to agree to answer to the rules of the club, to the leaders of the club, but you want to do it without micromanaging them. Poorly performing operations act like an inverted pyramid, where there's too many decisions bottlenecked through the leader. So here's what 3Ds do. They manage organizational resources with a precise mission focus, and it avoids mission drift. They said, this is my mission. I'm not, once my program hit its federal performance standards for the first time in like 20 years, people started calling me up and saying, Mr. Wallace, would you come speak to my organization? I could have partied and gone to lunch and gone to dinners and hung out and eat, but if I did that, my organization would have fallen apart. So you keep your precise mission focus. I'm not going to let my mission drift into going around and talking to your organization while mine falls apart. When I was a church youth group leader, my goal in life was to make sure that I didn't run out in the street and save somebody else's kid while I lost my own. And all my children are in Christ.
Amen.
My son graduated from Dallas Theological Seminary. I'm going to a family barbecue when I leave here with him and a bunch of other people. Anyway, because they're here for a couple of weeks. Anyway, you want to delegate roles and responsibilities. Don't just delegate odd jobs, especially when people are able to handle more. Try to figure out what their capacity is. Ask them, well, how much would you like to volunteer around here? What do you really want to do? It's always hard for volunteers to follow through anyway. Anyway, this is a cool slide. Obtaining synergy from diversity. Good leadership empowers individual gifts for team effort. A football team has some people whose bodies are very large and wide, so they make excellent linemen. There are other people on the defense whose bodies are structured the same, and they're really good at grabbing people and throwing them to the ground. There are other bodies that have longer limbs, and they're good at catching things that come at them from different angles. There's other bodies that are kind of tough, and they hang right in there, and even though this monster's about to tackle them, they just sit there with the ball, and they wait, and they find you in the lane, and they throw that ball even though they're about to get clobbered. There are other types of bodies that are little skinny bodies, good for kicking. If a football team does not have this diversity, it can't be a football team. But you know what the challenge is with that diversity? The psychology is all different from the different players. If I yell, protect the ball, the running back's going to do this. You know how running backs are. They got those, some of them have real small, strong bodies, and they're good at stepping over things, but if you get in their way, they're going to try to run you over. And if I say, protect the ball, the running back's going to do this. If I say, protect the ball, the linemen are going to look around for someone to slam into so I can protect the person that has the ball. The quarterback is either going to do this or he's going to throw the ball so that he doesn't get tackled. They all approach the game from a different psychological perspective. Your job as the leader of an organization is to take those psychological perspectives and focus it on the game, to use your gifts when they're needed, where they're needed, and keep people in the game when they don't get to hold the ball every play. Make any sense?
Yeah.
So, a three-dimensional leader, the book, The Three-Dimensional Leader, gives us tools to achieve synergy from our diverse team members. You want to be fair, firm, and consistent. I tell a couple stories in my book about some of these teams that have superstar players. Like on Bill Belichick's team, there's no superstars. You're just part. You know that I was with this guy once, and we were for the Super Bowl was coming up, and he says, I walked into his office and said, "You're going to watch the Super Bowl?" He goes, "I'm so mad about the New England Patriots. I hate them. I just hate them with a passion." What's the quarterback's name? McMahon. That McMahon, he gets on my nerves so badly. That guy took a pay cut to bring the team's salary cap down so they could get other players. No good.
Tom Brady.
Huh?
Tom Brady.
Tom Brady. And then, oh, that's right, yeah, then McMahon's suing, he's whining. Tom Brady. And then he impregnates a supermodel. And he's got a great family. You ever see his family on TV? You know, he loves his dad. I hate that guy. I just wish that team would get clobbered. I said, you're giving him quite a number of compliments, And he goes, I still hate him. And I said, well, you're hating him for all the reasons that people might love him. And that's why his team is so good. And so what does the coach do though? The coach has inspired Tom Brady to fold into that team effort and not make it all about me, Tom. It's not all about how much money you can make. It's what can we accomplish as a team. I tell another story in my book during the 2007, I believe, or 2008 New York Giants Super Bowl win. That year, Michael Strahan doesn't show up for training camp. Tom Kaufman was kind of a rigid guy. I mean, Michael Strahan would complain, if Tom Kaufman told me to wear a blue suit, a blue shirt, and a striped tie on game day, and I wore a red polka dot tie, he would fine me. Very rigid coach. Everybody's in my system. Everybody's going to do it my way, which happens to be the team's way because Tom Coughlin's the coach. Michael Strahan tackles more players than anybody else in history in one season. And the next season, he doesn't show up for training camp. And Coach Tom Coughlin's wife says, honey, you're going to have to think about this thing a little bit differently. Under Tom Coughlin's coaching system, you don't show up for camp when you're supposed to show up for camp. If you come late, you're getting fined. But you don't show up for days, you're off the team. Doesn't matter who you are. Now the fans are freaking out because everybody wants to see Michael Strahan play football. The sportscasters are freaking out. This is horrible because everybody knows under Tom Coughlin's system, you're done. Tom Coughlin's wife, she says, honey, it's time for the old dog to learn new tricks. You better go talk to Michael. He goes, I'm not talking to him. He should have been here. She says, honey, you really should go talk to Michael. You know what Michael Strahan's challenge was? I can't do it again. There is no way for me to tackle as many people this year as I did last year. And Coach Tom Coughlin said, you don't have to, Michael. We're a team. No one's asking you to tackle more players. All we want you to do is come back and play your best. And they won the Super Bowl that year. So you have to be firm, fair, and consistent, but you also have to realize there are times when people do bad things for a good reason. And you help them work through that and get them to do good things for good reasons. But you do have to empower and hold all accountable. He did find Michael Strahan. Probably wait to the second practice. They'll say, oh, by the way, Michael, your paycheck the next couple of weeks. So you create this effective evaluation system, you have effective leadership, and it overcomes all the tendencies that tend to corrupt teams. You know what conflict management is about? I explained it earlier. You spend a lot of time running around between two people saying, no, Bob, stay, come on, it's bigger, our mission is bigger than this. Don't, throw Joe off the bus. We need everybody on the train. Patrick Lencioni says this, teamwork is the ultimate competitive advantage because it is so powerful, yet so rare. Few groups are really, really able to achieve it. You know what I've been thinking about the last couple of years I've been at Camp Constitution? This year it finally solidified with me. You know what we need to do to have Camp Constitutions in other sections of the country? Sitting in the back row there and around here. All we got to do is replicate these guys, replicate these leaders. It's not rocket science. They need a this guy, they need a that guy, they need a Ruth gal, they need a this person, they need a Hal. And if you pull the right 6 or 7 people together, you can run a great camp. And I'm hoping that we're able to do a training program someday where these leaders can talk to other people and say, hey, this is all I do at this camp. This is what I do. And you show them how to do it. And I believe that we can inspire other people to do these sorts of things. Here's the goal for teamwork, though. You want to make your team tick versus then ticking your team off. There are 4 types of employees. We're going to talk about these 4 types of models. I'm not going to go through this and then do it again, but I will just get into it because I don't want to run out of time. If you look at the Song of Deborah in Judges 5, chapter 13 through 24, it really shows you the 4 ways that people tend to respond to group challenges. Some people rally to the mission. We're going to go around, it's around the clock, at 12 o'clock, rally to the mission, 3 o'clock. Other people fail to participate. It says that one group just stayed by the shore. Another group hid in the forest. Another group, they were paralyzed by overanalyzing. They had analysis paralysis. You know, sometimes we were going through a process once at work, and after we got done with a big staff meeting, I pulled the two managers in my office, and I said, you know, we got to move forward. You know, we've done all the study we can. We don't have technology to even study this thing anymore. So let's just, you know, I'm going to flip a coin, and the coin hit the floor, and I put my foot over it, and I said, heads or tails? And they said, you're going to make us decide this on a heads and tails. I said, yes, we got to keep moving. And besides, the two ways that we're debating here are so close that the public will never know. And if we're wrong in one area, we'll just jump on the other track. I said, your hearts are in the right place. We can do this. Let's just move forward. And that's what we did. Anyway, there are other people at 9 o'clock, they withdraw from the essential activities. If people never show up to your meetings, it means they don't want to be there. So treat them like they don't want to be there. Get somebody else to do that role and responsibility. All right, there are 4 types of employees. I like this next chart. Here we go. There are 4 types of employees. There are those who can and do. Can you read the, okay, big enough. You can read all the 4 boxes, correct? All right, there's 4 types of employees. The goal is to be a high right quadrant person, all right? We want to be up in the high right quadrant. There are those employees who can and they do. They get our numbers and they have our values. The numbers and values is the Jack Welch model. There are other employees going down on the right. They can't, but they will. They can't do the job yet, but after we train them, they will. There are other employees who don't have our numbers, but they have our values. So we can train them. They don't know how to get our numbers yet, but we can train them because they have our values. There are other employees who are can't and won'ts up at the top left. Those people, they get numbers, but they lack our values. They're doing the job, but they're making themselves a pain in the butt to be around. Those are the most challenging people in your organization. Because when you go to them and say, hey, you're not behaving properly, they're like, what? I'm getting my numbers. I'm doing what I'm supposed to do. But they're not doing it with the right values. So you change your employee evaluation program to make sure that you include values and how they're going to go about it. What's their attitude? How are they responding to people within the organization? How are they responding to our partners? And the least performing type of employee is a can't and can't. They can't do the job, and no matter what you give them, they can't do it. They just don't have the functional capacity or job fit to do the job. It's like me as an English major becoming an engineer. I shouldn't even try to do that. It's not going to happen. It's not appropriate. I'd be a can't and can't person. Those people, they don't have your numbers and they don't have your values. Now, when we talk about values, we're talking about being unassertive versus assertive. On the left side of the screen, the diagram, you want to be appropriately assertive. Not unassertive, not withdrawing from essential activities. And on the bottom, going over from left to right, we don't want you to be uncooperative, we want you to be cooperative. So we want you to be appropriately cooperative and appropriately assertive so you're a can and do person, getting our numbers and having our values high right quadrant. But we don't want you to be in the middle, where you're accommodating and too smoothing and you let anything go, anything slide. We don't want you to be a person of ultra tolerance, because then you can't get anything done. And you're letting people get away with murder. Now, of the 4 types of employees, the 2 worst types behave like one of 3 types of vampires. We'll explain this in a moment. Remember, values are what we believe, processes are how we implement our values, principles are the application of our beliefs. Oh, I don't have the vampire in here. I'll have to explain the vampires from here. There are 3 types of vampires. The first type of vampire is hominis nocturnus, aka Dracula. He's really an otherworldly being. He's a bad guy. The only reason Dracula wants to hang around with you is so he can say, hey, what's that? And when you look at it, he bites you on the neck. Sucks the synergy from your organization. And then there's the vampire who's in denial. I'll go back and do this in a minute. Then there's the vampire who's in denial. That person can't understand, why can't I stay awake during the day? How come I always wake up at dusk? And they get flashed. They look at the blood and the mud and the dirt under their fingernails. And they get flashbacks of the horror they were the night before. And they say, I can't be a vampire. I can't be a vampire. And then there's the vampire wannabe. The vampire wannabe says, hey, come to my house Friday night. I got a bunch of friends coming over and we're vampires. You're like, you're not a vampire. Oh yeah, I am. I got a cape. I sleep in a coffin. Come, we're having a party. Come see. We're all going to sleep in coffins. But you're not a vampire. Now, what's the challenge with all three of these people? What are they all potentially going to do to you? They're all going to attack you. Dracula's going to attack you because he loves it. The person in denial tries to be a good guy, but sitting beside you and working, and he can sense the blood pulsing through your veins, and he just starts salivating, and he can't hold it together, and he just bites you. And then there's the wannabe. He's going to bite you for all the wrong reasons. It's going to irritate the heck out of you, but it's still irritating. So what do you have to do with all three types of vampires? Huh?
I just said give it.
Say it louder. Say it louder.
Shoot a silver bullet.
You got to put a stake in their heart or shoot them with a silver bullet. If you don't, all three of those vampires are in one way or another going to consume your organization. I'm trying to find my slide. Oh, there we go. The real vampires are the can but won'ts. They can do anything they want. They're like Samson. But they're not going to do it to help you. They're going to do it so they can get an opportunity to consume you. The vampires in denial, they're the can't and can'ts. They can't hold it together. No matter how sincere they are, they're always going to be sincerely wrong. You know, these are the people that might think Elvis is alive. No offense to Elvis fans. Or Haile Selassie's alive. Or Bob Marley, whatever. And the wannabe vampires, they're also can't and can'ts. You're not going to change their delusions. So when people misbehave in your organization, figure out which type of vampire you're dealing with, and you only have one option. Put the stake through their heart and move on. That's my supervising for succession class. How much time do we have? All right. How can you use these principles to lead, encourage, guide, and support others to help fulfill our mission to save America? That's a question. How many of you think that, hey, I've learned a few things about leadership, I think I'm going to try this leadership thing?
Yes.
How many of you know you're destined to be a leader?
Yes. Yes.
Some people know. And as long as you focus on your MRCs, mission matters most, I'm going to take whatever available resources I have, and I'm going to focus them on the mission. I'm not going to use them to support my plan, my agenda. It's the program's agenda that's the most important. And then you can negotiate any context. And if you have a bunch of 3Ds in your team together, you can indeed negotiate any context. You know why the liberty movement is suffering? It's because we're full of two-dimensionals and one-dimensionals.
Amen.
If we had more 3Ds, I believe our liberty movement would be making more grounds throughout the United States of America. Questions, comments? I thank you for your time.